Black Myth Wukong is not the game you think it will be. And granted, the game is going to share similar mechanics to a Souls-like, with XP being lost upon death, or at least a portion of it. You're going to have things which are essentially like bonfires, you're going to have souls or runes. There are going to be some mechanics that are similar. But something this game does completely different is the game doesn't have a parry or a blocking system, which most Souls-like games have nowadays. What Black Myth Wukong is going to do is your defensive maneuvers in the game are going to rely on your ability to dodge. You're going to need to learn your dodge timing and things like that. There are defensive abilities, like you'll be able to use your staff to like block projectiles and things like that. But you're not going to have to time parries and blocking to avoid damage. You'll do it all with your dodging and some defensive abilities you'll have with your staff. But on top of that, there are going to be multiple stances in the game, and they are going to give you different abilities to use in combat. Like one of them, for an example, is going to give you like this massive smash attack that deals huge amounts of damage. You're also then going to have the ability to transform during boss fights and use some of their own abilities against them, as well as being able to transform into different objects to avoid conflict with certain enemies. And the reason I say is not the game you think it will be is because upon first glance, a lot of people might think this is going to be similar to something like Elden Ring. It's going to be a big open world. It's going to be a typical Souls-like, just with a different skin on it. Whereas Black Myth Wukong isn't going to be one of the hardest games ever made. Like, the difficulty is not going to be like drastically difficult. From what I've heard so far, it's going to be a little bit more of a forgiving game. There's definitely going to be a challenge there, especially with the bosses and stuff you'll face. But it's not going to be like your typical Elden Ring, your Sifu, your Dark Souls and things like that. This game is going to give you a little bit more room for error. There will be some crafting in the game, some loot and boss items and stuff. You're not going to be limited to what you start the game with. But exactly how much there is in the game, I don't know at this moment. And to let you all know, this is not an open world game at all. The game is designed around linear chapter-based levels, and some of the trailers might have made it seem like an open world game, but it has been confirmed by the developers themselves that it's not going to be. However, there will be different biomes and stuff, including an icy area with mountains in the background. There's going to be sandy areas, forest areas. There's going to be quite a lot of different biomes and stuff to explore as you're playing the game, but it's not open world. It's going to be more of a linear sort of chapter-based design. And there are going to be a lot of bosses in this game. Some estimates have said the game's going to be at least 15 hours worth of gameplay, and that's going to be with over 100 enemy types, not just bosses, enemies altogether. And then others have said there are going to be 160 enemy types with 80 bosses in the game. And if you're fighting even close to 80 bosses and around 15 hours of gameplay, it might feel like a boss rush sort of game, although there's not been any data shared with exact numbers or anything. It's all estimates, leaks and things like that. But there is going to be a lot, so prepare yourself for practicing a lot of boss mechanics and taking down a lot of bosses. And Black Myth Wukong is not going to be available on Xbox. It's only going to, at least for the time being, be available on the Epic Games Store, Steam and on the PS5. And if you're playing this game on Steam, aiming for the recommended settings, you are going to need an i7-9700 or a Ryzen 5 5500 CPU. You're going to need the recommended 16GB of RAM. You're going to need an RTX 2060 or a Radeon RX 5700 XT, and it says SSD required. They're recommending 130GB of storage space. So it's a rather large game. And on release for console, like for PS5, the physical edition is not actually going to come with a disc. It's just going to be a code in the box. They're planning to make disc versions later down the line, but for the launch of the game, it's going to simply be like a digital download code that comes in your game case. So overall, it's not going to be your typical Souls-like game. We're not seeing the same Souls game being created with a different skin on it like we've seen quite a lot lately. Black Myth Wukong has Souls features, granted, but by the looks of things, it's going to rely a lot more on being an action RPG than anything else. The game is set to release on August the 20th, so we are less than a week away from actually getting our hands on, getting experience with the game, and this is a game that I've been waiting a very, very long time to play. But what we're going to do on that note is leave the video there. Let me know your thoughts and stuff about Black Myth Wukong in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.